Hey, I just want to talk a few minutes about the Pam Bondi controversy, okay, and the Epstein files, okay. Um, Communication is not an exact science. It never has, it never had, it never was, it never is, and it never will be. And that's why you have to be careful with communication. You have to be careful with what you say because it could be miscommunicated, it could be misunderstood. And how many of us have experienced misunderstanding from others? Now, something else again, okay? Donald Trump had some association with Epstein years and years and years and years ago. I saw the picture. He was a very young man, okay? And whether or not he was on that list, okay, and the left and the Democrats want him so badly to be on that list, okay, and whether Pam Bondi saw that and didn't want it spread, for the left to jump on it, or whether there really was no list at all. We will never know. Now, I support Donald Trump's comment that let's stop concentrating on a man who we don't even care about anymore. He's gone. He is dead. He is gone. He will never meet justice. He's dead. You know, and whoever was associated with that, we probably will never know who they were. But the thing to think about, okay, let's say for argument's sake that Donald Trump was on that list. So what? He was a younger man. He's not the same person he was during that time. Okay. This falls under the same heading as that infamous grab, you know, grab them by the, tape, okay, from over 10 years ago. Actually, it's now more than 20 years ago because we've been, I mean, a, yeah, about 10 years since that recording came up. So we got 10 and then add another 10. So we're talking 20 years ago, more than 2 decades ago. Okay, more than 2 decades ago. I don't care about 2 decades ago. I don't care about 20 years ago. The man of 20 years ago is not the same man today. And when during the first campaign, and they jumped on that tape, and Donald Trump stood before a camera and told the audience, I was a different man then. I said some things and I did some things that I'm ashamed of. That was one of them. I am sorry, that I said what I said. You know, let's move on from today. You know, and Kavanaugh was the same thing. I said they're jumping on what could have happened all those years ago. The Carol thing, all those years ago, when it never really was the case. But again, all those years ago, it's like he was a different man then. He was a millionaire and a playboy. So what? That probably was the norm back then. You know, society changes it sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. You know, I mean, think about when the Bible came into being and the social norms back then. That's why it's okay sacrificing a person's firstborn was the norm and the social norm. And then that story was to say, okay, we're breaking away from that social norm and going a different route, which was revolutionary back then. So and so was the uh, Playboy millionaires of the 90s, of the 1990s, or whenever. Okay. The social norms from the 1990s have no bearing today. And they shouldn't. You know, so let's put the damn thing to rest, okay? It's not a controversy, and whether Pam Bondi misunderstood, sorry, misunderstood, you know, she was asked, is the list, you know, and she says, it's on my desk right now. She might not have heard the word list. She might have heard the word file. You know, it's communication. It's what's heard. It's what's perceived. You know, and that's why in communication you should say something to somebody, and that the response should be, okay, I heard you to say this, this, and this. Is that what you said? Is that what you meant? Which, of course, will give the other person the option to say, no, that's not what I meant. This is what I meant. You know, I mean, I remember a situation where my very good friend Ken was trying to tell me something, and it just wasn't clicking. And he says, well, if I shout it louder, maybe it'll register. So he repeated the very same thing, and I still didn't get it. But the moment he changed the information and added a little detail, you know, I got it. I says, oh, okay. And he said to me, well, why didn't you, I said, why didn't you say that to begin with? He said, I didn't think I needed to. You know, so file, no file, list, no list. You know, probably, it probably didn't need to be spoken or it didn't need to be mentioned. You know, or maybe in Pam Bodney's mind, all the files are there. JFK, Martin Luther King, uh, Bobby Kennedy, Epstein. It's all lumped into one thing. So even if you were to say, the JFK, it's on my desk. Martin Luther King, it's on my desk. Because everything is in one clump. So even if you broke it down, list, it's on my desk. Okay? So you can't really clump it all together in the controversy. And Dan Bongino, because of this miscommunication, okay, he should have talked this out instead of just jumping ship, you know, and See, there's miscommunication there. The whole Elon Musk thing with he and Trump, that was a miscommunication thing. Communication is not, I take communication seriously, but not so seriously that you gotta make it exact and precise because that never works. I never do that. I never do that. Sometimes I do and I shouldn't. Okay, whether I'm on a linear line and thinking, and then somebody says something else, and I said, "Wait a minute, you never said that before." I said, "Well, I didn't think I needed to," you know. So, it, so with Pam Bondi and Epstein, and Trump is right to say, "Look, we don't even care about him." I mean, that was a part of the past. I got nothing to do with it. Even if even if he did appear on that list, so what? He was a different man back then. And he's got too much thinking about today to not cloud up everything he's got to do with something like that. Okay, I mean, I can understand where he's coming from because my dad was sort of the same way. My dad had so much on his plate. I got a lot of things on my plate too. And I got I get depressed sometimes, because I got so much on my plate, so much to deal with, and I got this, and I got this, and I got that, and I got that, and I'm like, oh, give me a break, because there's so much. But I wouldn't want to be in Donald Trump's shoes, not for anything, because he's got a lot on his plate, a lot to deal with, and every additional fight and protest that he's got to deal with only makes his job all the more difficult. Can you imagine with everything my dad had to do and then someone decided to throw drama into the mix? He would probably be like, oh no. I got so much on my plate, so much to deal with, and now we got to deal with this bull crap. You know, so, and in Trump's mind, the Epstein thing is like, oh come on, we got too many important things to deal with, too many important things to think about, too many important things that I have to fix, that I have to work on. My dad would probably be the same thing. You know, I think the stress of being president of Regent Sound Studios, and all the work he had to do and clients and so forth, I probably took a toll, and that's why he died early. And the smoking and the cigarettes really didn't help. But it's very possible that the smoking, was a way for him to let off some steam, you know, of all the stress he's under. And Donald Trump's under the same kind of stress. That's why presidents age as they go through their term. That, like Obama, whoever it may be, they start out young looking, and by the end of that term, he looks like a decrepit old man. That's because the stress of the job takes its toll on the human being. And the more stressful the job, the quicker they age, you know. So, and he's got too much to deal with, too many things on his plate. And that's what he's basically saying. He says, why are we talking about Epstein, a guy we don't even care about, a guy who's dead? He's dead. There's never going to be any justice. He's dead. He's dead. He's gone. And we got millions and millions of people alive who need my help. That's more important. It's these priorities. And that's something you could attribute to Democrats and the left. They got their priorities screwed up. They make the unimportant important. So that's my take on this whole Epstein, Bondi debacle, controversy, whatever you want to call it. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I will see you later. Take care, guys. See you soon. Bye.